from Rixie. This is Frameform.
All right, folks, it's here, our deep dive for this season, and I'm extra excited for this one. It is our West Side Story deep dive episode. So every season, we like to pick at least one feature film to dedicate an entire episode to, and even before I saw West Side Story in theater, I knew I would be pitching this as a topic for our current season. How could we not cover this reimagination of a classic musical that, in my opinion, is the musical to show anyone who is skeptical that they could ever enjoy singing and dancing on the big screen? For decades, the 1961 movie version, even with its obvious flaws, has been cherished because of certain elements that shine through. It's still a prime example of choreography for camera, and even with its awkward/offensive makeup and accents, there's a good intention at the core of the story and a lot of great dance. In this new version, screenwriter Tony Kushner, director-producer Steven Spielberg, and their fleet of experts has redeemed these flaws and then some. They have created what I believe to be a sublime and timeless classic. The 2021 version is so intentionally crafted with authenticity, nuance, and virtuosity, I was sobbing for the entire final act, in part because I didn't want it to end. So clearly I'm a fan, but do Hannah and Claire feel the same way? Before we deep dive into any further details, let's rewind and provide you with some context on how West Side Story got to this point, why this particular version is so worthy of being celebrated in my opinion, and, of course, what Hannah and Claire think. So, did you two see the original? And what knowledge or context or expectations did you have going into the new one?
Yes, I've seen the original. Thank you to my grandmother, my Grandma Lil, for feeding me and encouraging me and teaching me the ways of all the musicals in the 60s. And this one, of course, was in the VHS set that she had. I love this one. I still cherish it. The colors during this era in film, it's just everything is so bright and lively. So I really love how this looks on television, and that's how I watched it. I didn't see it at the theater. I watched it on a small television. And it's just a great one. It's catchy. It teaches you things that you, at a young age, that you don't know about. And it's a classic.
Yeah, I think I first saw West Side Story, oddly enough, in a Spanish class. This was like end of the year kind of things where like all the testing is done, like the APs are done, and now the teachers need to just like kill time for a bit. And I mean, we did have discussions about cultural representation and sort of the monolithing of the general Caribbean culture as well. But I was drawn to it, and I was drawn. I remember at the time being drawn to Natalie Wood's performance, as problematic as it was. There is a real sense of groundedness that she has in that movie that I don't really think that she has in, really any other film that she's done. And also, I completely reframed the way I thought about the film when I was doing my master's program in London. And this was when I started really getting into some of the more academic side of screen dance. And my professor, shout out Gabby Tropia, actually showed us the first 7 minutes of West Side Story, starting out with that helicopter shot and looking at the choreography of the camera and the edits in tandem with the dancing, and really, arguing like this is screen dance. This is, this is how a marriage of dance and camera can be done, and can be done in a very accessible way as well.
Absolutely. And I believe it was done in the 1961 version. And then again, in this new version, we see it on a completely different level. What new technology and honestly, what I believe to be more authenticity, more intentionality, what that can result in, which, as I said in the intro, I think this is the film to show people if they're like, I don't like musicals. And as I think I've shared on the podcast, part of what sparked my inspiration for dance cinema and for even getting into screen dance or dance film in a more serious way was being in film school and my teachers unanimously saying, I don't like musicals, but we're going to watch Singin' in the Rain. And they could all acknowledge that Singin' in the Rain was still really great, but no one really understood or was passionate about the language of dance married with film. And I think the original West Side Story did it, and this one does it on a whole other level. It's a 2.5, or Hannah, you said 2 hours, 45 minutes.
2.5
film.
plus.
Yeah, around that if we're budgeting credits.
As I was thinking earlier, is that extremely long, especially for today's audiences? Yes, but if you're looking at it from the context of this is an epic, this is like the singular musical to watch, I think that 2.5 to 3 hours is absolutely perfect. How much screen time do we give to Lord of the Rings and Star Wars in comparison? That said, there's so many ways that we could go into a conversation about this and so many different details to pick up on that we are going to try really hard to stay focused on a couple discussion points so that we can cover a range of topics and hopefully we get some little tangents and deep dives in there without completely spending the next 24 hours talking about this film. So my first quick question is, who were your favorite or least favorite characters?
I hated Riff. Sorry to take over, Claire, but I need to get this off my chest. I did not like Riff. He was annoying. The choice of character, like the actor, it didn't work well for me. Honestly, I have a lot of things and things I'd like to say about this film, but okay, let's just start with Riff. I don't think casting worked for him. He looked like just like a little bitty hipster boy playing someone in the 60s. Ansel Elgort, also as Tony, was not my favorite. I really love the movie Baby Driver, and to me, he is always Baby Driver in my head. The way that he finds out that Maria was shot and is dead is the most, like, he doesn't execute it very well. Yeah, Ansel Elgort underperformed here. Riff was annoying. The Jets in general were annoying. Like, I did not like them. I was okay with them in the 1961 version, but this one just made me, like, I could just do without them.
You were kind of meant to hate them, though, because they are delinquents.
In the 1961 version, it's a lot easier to digest the Jets.
Yeah.
Whereas Spielberg just was like, you're going to hate them no matter what.
Well, okay, so I have one hard agree and one hard disagree with what you just said.
Love it.
I totally agree with regards to Tony and Ansel Elgort. And I mean, basically anything, I don't think that that's anything new said about this film, because any review I've read about it is, this is a great adaptation. The one thing really holding it back is just the weak male lead. I think that he was there for star power, considering that the rest of the cast really, a lot of them are doing their first feature. And something that was really intriguing looking at the cast is just how the predominance of the dance background with a lot of them. I mean, obviously, Ariana DeBose was on So You Think You Can Dance. David Alvarez was a JKO scholarship winner and then, joined the Army for 2 years, as you do. I completely disagree when it comes to Mike Feist. I loved Riff. And I think, honestly, the strong supporting performances, particularly from the male cast, that juxtaposition of the strength and the energy and charisma that they're putting on screen really brings out just how weak Ansel Elgort was. Now, all the, controversy about him aside, I felt like I wanted to see, I would have seen a whole movie with Riff. And he's not a pleasant character. And it's the kind of thing where it's kind of like a Red Rocket situation. Like, the character you see on screen is not someone you necessarily love, but you can't help but watch. And I think that also the way that we frame the characters as well, is particularly with this version, is, as Jen mentioned, like a heightened sense of cultural sensitivity. Whereas the 1961 version, like the Jets were very much of a rebel without a cause type, and sort of like grandfathering off that, James Dean generation. I mean, sad to say, a moviegoer at the time might have leaned more towards them. But here, that's I mean, there's almost a sort of abrasiveness to them, and also I don't want to go off too much on a tangent, but sort of almost like a reluctance of adhering to gang life. I mean, from both sides, really, but really from the predominant characters in Maria's circle, in Bernardo's circle, in Anita's circle.
I think a real win about this version is the sheer amount of development that was done on every single character. Everything is so layered, and I love that we're already having a disagreement about Riff, because we're not having a disagreement about Tony, let's be honest, but we are having a disagreement about Riff here. And what I really love, and I think this is going to come through in like a couple other ways in this conversation, is that I think this film invites us to, even though on the surface it is based on Romeo and Juliet, Montagues and Capulets, rivaling gangs, there's so much more nuance to it. And I think at the center is really a message of empathizing with the individual. Because while we could dismiss Riff and the Jets as like just delinquents and like the worst, and of course we don't like them, they're in their own way are victims of not having parents around, not having good examples. And I really love how this story does, and I think it might be Riff himself that says to the sharks, like, you have families, you have jobs, you have each other. I think that there's a lot to be said there with that character, and I love that we're already having some heated disagreements on things. So we've kind of talked about those standout things we might change or characters that were not our favorite. What about your absolute favorite characters or moments for those characters in this film?
I mean, I think we can all agree that Anita was the strongest of all the characters in this.
Yeah.
I'll just stop there.
Yeah.
It's like, any other questions? No? Great.
Yeah. I mean, I think that, so much has already been said about Ariana DeBose's performance here, and so deservedly so. And I mean, I also have to commend the performances of everyone, playing the sharks as well. And, going very seamlessly from English to Spanish, and also in an authentic Puerto Rican accent too. Again, it's not monolithing the whole Latin American culture. It is getting very, very specific into those details. And yeah, Ariana just elevates the character so much. But I also want to shout out Rita Moreno. I actually thought her character was a fantastic addition to the film. I thought that the choice to have There's a Place for Us sung by her was actually a really nice choice.
Mm-hmm.
Well, to piggyback off of Anita, America was the standout song. I mean, that also goes within the 1961 version. What a beautiful, and I would say the most, like, the highest peak of the film. As we were like talking about with the Jets living this kind of lackluster life with parents that are doing drugs or they're not there for them, rebel without a cause, as we were saying. Watching the two in their uniforms and colors that they're wearing throughout the film, the Jets wearing like blues, grays, darker colors, associated with sad and depressed and like, neutral, boring. And then when we have the Puerto Ricans, their crowd, there's this new hope being an immigrant in the United States, being able to charge credit at a store, being able to have a laundry machine. They speak of hope. And that song, America, they're all wearing, vibrant oranges and yellows. I mean, at the beginning of the film, you see the Jets take down a sign for a, Puerto Rican shop, and it's a temporary sign. They take it down, and underneath is this old Irish pub.
And they also kick down a Men at Work sign in the very first scene.
Yeah, and with that, it's like, all these people coming into the United States have these new opportunities, a new way of life, speaking a different language than they normally would in their country. That whole part in America where the dancing is at the best in the film, everything is just so... This truly transported me back to the love that I have in the 1961 version. Like, this is like, okay, this is West Side Story. Like, this is what I've been waiting for in this movie. So I have to give the team that created that exuberance on screen.
And I love how there were kids in it, like, really dancing.
Yes.
Like,
yes.
Oh, yeah.
That was such a special touch for me, too, is that was this real intergenerational thing. And what a powerful creative choice to take it from a rooftop into the street. So that you've moved from this, like, liminal space that traditionally represents dreams and the possible, and you actually put it in the setting where they are actually making that dream happen in a very pragmatic way. And America's also set up in a really powerful way in that kitchen scene where, similar to conversations I've had in my own house where we're deciding what language are we speaking right now so that we can decide, like, are we practicing this? Are we practicing that? Are we embracing this or embracing that? I know that a lot of people that grew up in a multilingual home probably really connected with that scene because it goes so much more beyond dropping in a random slang term in some dialogue later, and how powerful that they did not put subtitles to really reflect what it's like when you don't speak a language. You just have to read body language and tone and context and try to do your best. I also really love how America and Somewhere kind of resonate with each other as points in Anita's, what I believe to be a very tragic story. Tony and Maria's romance to me is a catalyst for action, but it's not the true focus of the story. When I was watching, it was really about all the characters, but I was so invested in Anita and her love story with her dream of becoming her new self and her new life. And this scene really just set it up with so much context that you can't help but be so heartbroken by the end. I mean, her ambition, she wants to own a shop and she wants to employ other people and, like, really these noble aspirations and such good intention. When we see later how you can work, you can be honest, you can do your best, and sometimes good people still suffer is part of the real tragedy here, and the fact that our surroundings really can affect our safety and our certainty when it comes to things. It's truly a tragedy, and I think that when it comes to Somewhere, the way it's paralleled with Valentina, that Somewhere is maybe not even that perceived promise of America that they had. That Somewhere has to be a place in your dreams or in your heart that you cultivate with yourself or with someone else or with your community. And it's not promised or guaranteed. It's a true tragic romance. And I think America, like you said, Hannah, is that peak moment that then crashes down at the very end.
Yeah. There's sort of this theme throughout the film, and it's obviously it's adhering to the original musical in that it is following the characters, but it also really starts to broach this aspect of the main character being the community in a way, and the communities sort of who are at war with each other, and really a war that's instigated by the city of New York that's clearing house. And so there were a few standout moments to me, and one standout moment was actually right before the Rumble when Tony and Chino actually get to that warehouse at the same time.
Yes. Neither
Neither of them want to participate, but they, both have the same idea of going in, seeing what they can do to stop it. And then by the end, like, they, one of them ends up killing the other. And it just really shows the nature of just how people get into those, in this tribalism, in this element. But there are a few standout moments for me as far as how they represented the film as a whole. One standout actually was in the credits when Justin Peck was credited before the producers. And like for someone who's known for sneaker ballets, this was very much up his alley. And another one, and this might be a bit of an odd moment, was the interlude when Maria wakes up after, the night after the balcony scene, and she's getting ready, choreographed to the Bernstein interlude. And that's something that I really appreciated about this movie, is that how it used the Bernstein score and really, really maximized the potential for it. Like even that moment where she's getting ready, right, like perfectly in line with the music without Mickey Mousing the music.
I think beginning to end, this is a screen dance. It does not let up for a single moment. And I know for some people that might not be their thing, but I just saw that as pure perfection. Two more quick moments I want to acknowledge. One is just super fun and amazing, which was Chino's dance solo at the gym.
I love that.
I felt pure joy watching that. That was the cutest thing ever. So that was one of my favorite dance moments in the whole musical. And that leads me to bring up also the character of Anybody's, who was beautifully fleshed out in this version compared to the original stories, where they're kind of pigeonholed as this like annoying character that's like, I want to be one of the guys. And here you see an individual that is beautifully crafted and fluidly moving between friendship with Tony and the Jets, and really being this beautiful force for understanding and peacemaking throughout.
Yeah.
I just love this character so much more in this version than any other version I've seen.
I also agree with that statement. I thought that character was way more developed this time around and very well executed, especially during that shop scene when right away they just say leave. And that was like the most subtle moment that just, it answered everything,
Mm-hmm. So I know that character and just overall every character being super developed was part of the big surprise for me with this version, but were there any other surprises for you two?
I'm not sure if I was necessarily surprised through watching the film. I think that, I appreciated what was being brought to the table in this version. I didn't really think that it did anything particularly. I didn't really think it did a whole lot particularly new or innovative for the musical genre or the musical film genre. And I believe we're just, I think Hannah was going to talk about this too, but particularly when I was watching America, I was just drawn back to my experience watching In the Heights. And I think that again, they came out pretty close to each other, so I think it's hard to separate comparisons between the two, because we do have, a Latinx community in New York that's, undergoing pretty, accelerated change. But I thought that what that film was doing was, in a way, a refreshing take on the movie musical in a way. And I think that momentum-wise, I think that it overall did a better job of keeping the momentum throughout the whole movie. I do think that Into the Heights is far too long for what it needs to be. And yeah, it has some very real flaws, but I thought that there was a fresh take that I didn't necessarily experience with this. Now, with that being said, I was very pleasantly surprised by how integrated movement was, even away from sort of the big dance numbers, and sort of how the movement of the characters was orchestrated, and particularly again with Riff and his movement, and how that movement shifted between sort of like the bravado toward the beginning and then to a very almost like a child during the fight itself, like so showing that was very much almost like a put on before he's actually sent in to do something very with some sense of gravity to it. So I say that, yeah, there's some pleasant surprises when it comes to some of the choices that were made. Again, I love the scene with Valentina singing Somewhere. And yeah, and there's some choices that were very, very pleasant surprises within.
Yeah, I'd have to agree, Claire. Yeah, as I was going to say, yeah, In the Heights was released really close to this. So for me, this was just another movie in New York that's blue and not orange.
Spoken like a true video editor.
Yeah, it was just like we just changed the hue. The shots were really similar. It was so, sharp in the saturation and the contrast department of things. So the look was really similar, which didn't wow me at all. I mean, I know the past couple of years, Spielberg's films kind of go in that direction anyway, in his like dark action drama heavy films, but for this one I was just like, okay, great, like it's another one. This is a trend that's we're seeing here. So I wasn't really wowed by anything, except though there was this moment while we were watching Something's Coming where Tony is about to go to the dance, and then I realized, like, wow, there's a lot of different shots going on here, and he's singing a dance and dancing. Like, how many times did they do this song and dance to cover this many, camera setups? There's a wide shot, there's this close up doing something, there's this moment where we're on the other side of the door. I was like, wow, this is a lot for a very short song.
Yeah. So many unnecessary edits.
So that was the one thing that wowed me. I mean, I know we see that a lot through the movie, but for a song that takes place in a small room and also a very short song, that's a lot of work right there.
Something's coming, and it's another cut, and it's another cut, and it's another cut.
Yeah, so that was one thing I mean, I'll save this comment for later, but yeah, there was just a lot of production in this.
So I got a book that's like all the storyboards and everything, and it kind of reminds me of a graphic novel type aesthetic. It's not extreme like a Zack Snyder situation, but part of it is that it is now, and this is something that within the Heights, like when I watched In the Heights, I was like, this totally seems like a musical that came out for Gen Z or for Gen Z.
Oh yeah, 100%.
This is totally their musical, whereas for me, like, West Side Story is a timeless classic. I don't need people to agree with me on that. That is my true feeling about it. I'll say one other thing that really surprised me, and I was like so relieved about with this, was Maria. I just connected with the character a lot more in this story. I thought she was written a lot better, and particularly the I Feel Pretty scene I thought was beautifully done and contextualized a lot better, and how heartbreaking, again, and how artfully it was placed in the sequence, which was not the same as the original, so that it was actually juxtaposed for maximum effect. My past pet peeves, as far as like, take away the obvious offensive, like, makeup and the accent, like, all that stuff, which is important to acknowledge, aside. What had really annoyed me about West Side Story, the original one, probably was like, this character, I don't get it.
It's the corniness of it. That's what I love. It's so damn corny. Like all of those movies from back then.
Give me Nicolas Cage if I want corny. I want my musicals to be good.
No, but it's like from the 60s where everything is just like way too elevated and turned up to 11 on purpose. The surf movies, West Side Story, Bye Bye Birdie, all of those. Like it was the time that will never come back, which is a good thing, but I will totally accept it for that moment in time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, I thought Rachel Zegler did a fantastic Maria, and I think it's worth noting that she's performed this role before. And I think, again, her actual, that's actually her singing, unlike the original as well. And
Right.
she is so well suited for Bernstein as well.
Yes.
And that is a tough role, because this is sort of like Bernstein, like 1 foot in musical theater, 1 foot in operetta, and that soprano has to do everything.
And then Ansel Elgort has the task of trying to star next to her. So, I mean, it would
Oh,
be a
gosh.
tall order for anybody to partner her and to sing with her and to dance with her and to act with her. So I think we got to give the guy a little bit of a break, because he is dealing with an actual star. And in all the interviews and stuff, he acknowledges that. Before we go into our next question, I want to really quickly share something funny, which was that at the time that they were going to start shooting, she was already committed to a production. And by committed to a production, I mean her High School Musical production of Shrek, where she was playing Fiona.
Oh, right.
And
I read
she,
this.
yeah, like legit had Spielberg postpone production. Like, it's not like she made him, but she's like, I made a commitment. I have to honor my commitment. So he postponed production until she was ready to, take her final bow as Fiona and then be Maria in this version of the film.
Cheers to her. That's awesome.
Yeah, that's loyalty right there. So, like I said, we could go into so many different pathways on this film, but let's forge forward to our next question, which was any favorite or least favorite scene?
My least favorite was the meeting of Tony and Maria at the school. I thought it was, I mean, okay, we know that it was a suddenly they meet. This definitely felt like that, but it didn't capture the magical essence of it. When I talk about overproduction, this is one of those moments where it was so overproduced that it lost that momentum of magic that was supposed to be there. I mean, you see it with the lighting and the music, but somehow the audience feels so removed, and maybe that's just me feeling super removed, that they're meeting for the first time and somehow they make it to the bleachers. I just felt like there was just way too much editing in this moment where we're cutting too many times, and it just my attention span was lost there. And for those kind of moments, like when you're staring at someone, you want to feel like you're not blinking, and an edit feels like you're blinking. Like when you're seeing someone and you're just so amazed and you want to capture that, like, I'm staring at someone, they see me, and we can't leave each other's eyes. In this moment, I was looking everywhere else except for the other person.
That was so romantic, Hannah.
Yeah, I'm so with you there, Hannah. That scene just did not land at all, and land especially in the way that it intended to. And so I felt like as a viewer that I was almost like trying to catch up. Okay, I can see that they're getting on board with this connection. Now I need to get on board with this too, and I'm struggling to do that. So yeah, there is this sort of like cognitive dissonance happening when I watch that moment. And also I felt that there were some tonal shifts as far as the look and the pacing of the dialogue heavy moments versus the dance heavy moments that felt a little too whiplashy. Like we had you'd have this very incredible spectacular dance sequence that would immediately be followed by, I started calling it Saving Private Tony, like very Spielbergian, gritty, like almost like trying to be like realistic to a point that it was almost plotting the film in a way.
Yeah.
So I mean, every time that it was getting sort of like in the bridges between musical numbers, I was just waiting. Okay, when's the next number happening? When's the next number happening?
Yeah, it's like Claire, it's like what you said earlier. There wasn't anything new or change or innovative in this that we were seeing also in the Heights here. But honestly, I just want to switch out Spielberg as a director. I just feel that he took it way too intense, and I honestly, I watched this movie twice and it did not really sit with me. Like, I just wasn't like, yes, I was singing the songs afterwards because, I mean, they're iconic songs and they do easily get stuck in your head. However, it just didn't really do it for me. It wasn't a movie that made me like scream like I love this movie, honestly. Like it did a lot of great things.
You're like, I don't understand why Jen had to text us both right after she got out of the theater for this.
And maybe that was it, Jen. You were like hyped me up like way too much and I was expecting something so amazing that I held it way too high in my mind and it didn't do that for me.
I will not apologize.
And you yeah, you shouldn't. And I mean, I think that's also another thing that I saw it on TV. I did not see it in the theater. Like I was not that captive audience seeing it on the big screen.
Same.
But I'm so with you, Hannah. Like I don't think Spielberg was suited for this. I think it was just very much, spectacle on spectacle on spectacle, using sort of his tried and true techniques to build that up, which just completely resulted in it resulted in a very a kinetic experience, but also sort of a very dense, a little far too dense for me. And going back to the idea that it didn't really add anything new to the source material. And just to provide some extra context for that, West Side Story was actually rebooted or restaged on Broadway in 2020. And I will say I didn't get a chance to see the show, but it's essentially a modernization with choreography from, of all people, Anna Teresa de Keersmacher. Now, I would have been very interested to see what she would have done that, because Keersmacher and musicals seem about as far apart as they could possibly be.
Right.
So I would have been very interested to see like what kind of take that she would have on this material, and especially as a Belgian-based choreographer looking at an American story too. So I appreciate a lot of what the movie brought to the table. I do appreciate that it did provide this extra layers and much more complexity to each of the characters. Again, Valentina, the shopkeeper, is a great example of Boricua who married a white man and is sort of like kind of managing both of these sides and both of these conflicting worlds in many different ways.
And she's hopelessly looking at the current generation and thinking, how have we not resolved this by now?
Right. Absolutely. And also just the nature of tribalism, and sort of like the reluctant nature of tribalism. Like we see at the beginning, like Bernardo doesn't want to be in the gang. He doesn't want Chino to be involved with it, but they end up being involved through a series of circumstances and through really, their own protection in a way. So, there are some things like that I really, really appreciated. But I think that I think that a more dramatic take on the material would have been more refreshing. And also, just for context, my favorite musical of the last few years is Annette, and I know that is not a musical for everybody. So that's as far as like, I do want to be aware of like when my own biases do get in the way of that as well.
I just want to say I'm very jaded. When it comes to reboots, remakes, anything based on a true story, like I'm tired of it. So honestly, I didn't think that we needed a reboot or a remake of West Side Story. I think it's just great as it is, even though we have all of our, controversies with it and what it brings. But I would just want more inventive stuff these days. I want creative work. I don't want something that's based on a true story, or we had to reboot, another 2-3 seasons of Will and Grace because everyone loved it, even though, the one in the 90s and early 2000s was just perfect as is. So I don't love the fact that Spielberg was like, let's dig this up and like spend, $100 million and not even break even to like make this movie. It's only made a box office of like 76 million, which is like that's like still like a good amount of money.
Well, they get their ad revenue from HBO Max.
I mean, yeah, I mean, granted, it was released during, COVID times and on HBO.
And they waited for the theatrical release for like a year, I think, until it like was soft COVID and they could sort of open in theaters. And then they did the online release like 3 months later.
Too soon.
HBO Max, Disney Plus.
Still too soon. Like, give me a movie. Like, if you want to remake something, remake a silent movie. Let's do that.
Remake Ghostbusters with an all-female cast. Oh wait, no, we tried that. Never mind.
Okay, that was also a big mistake. That did not need to be done. We do not need all these like spin-offs on things. Be more inventive. We do it's too soon.
This is why I love these conversations, because we do not agree on everything, and that is even better than if we did agree. It would be so boring if we did. I love that we can hash out the details. We're not worried about offending each other. We can really kind of work through our own thoughts. And I will say that my opinion on this film has maybe deepened through this conversation. And I know that you two are like, oh, Spielberg like way overdid it and nay, but I do want to give credit to Tony Kushner for rearranging the numbers and, crafting the screenplay in a way that I do think we get more than the original. And I think that great directors and producers, they find the best talent and they orchestrate it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think any department you look at in this film, whether it was your artistic favorite or not, they killed it. Like, I think this is a great example of virtuosity in every department, and that alone is a beautiful thing that can exist. And this isn't the only film that does that, but what a great opportunity for all the people that contributed to this massive production, to just recreate this classic. And to be honest, you could show the 1961 West Side Story to someone that's Gen Z right now, and they would probably not make it through 5 minutes. They'd be like, oh, people are in brown face, I'm not watching it. And it's like, okay, well, I get, and of course they could say that about Ansel Elgort with this, and like, oh, like, there's allegations, I'm not going to watch it. But I think this was a great attempt to update and provide more context and just celebrate how far technology's come. And even if it's not your cup of tea, I think it's a nice way to revive a classic. And I don't think there needs to be another one after this one, but I'm glad this one exists. Right.
Please, no. We do not need another A Star is Born.
Though I would pay to see the Terry DeMay Kiersmacher version of West Side Story and see how that would turn out.
So in closing, I think aside from the technical excellence of this film, at the heart of it is a really good story or stories and a really good message. And this message that the general human experience is something that we can all relate to. And it doesn't matter your particular group identity one way or the other, because we see those identities and those bonds forged and broken time and time again in this film. And the circumstances you're in shift what becomes important to these characters and how they connect with each other. And those alliances can shift in the blink of an eye. We see various characters cope with the heartbreak of their dreams and their expectations being broken, their essential human needs not being met. And we see that even good people suffer and struggle, and those that we might discard as lazy or cruel are really the ones that need the most help and understanding. So I believe at the core of this story is a plea for compassion and to see the good in others and to see beyond group identity and strive for our own individual clarity and peace. When we see the humanity in others, we can no longer have the heart to hate them. And I think that's the real gift that West Side Story gives us.
The great work begins. That's a Tony Kushner reference.
This is Frameform, hosted by Hannah Weber, Jen Ray, and Claire Schweitzer. Edited by the Frameform team, with social media assistance from Maddie Leitner and music by Mason Carlton. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next week.